As always, we will begin with 3 deep breaths. So take a deep breath in through your nose. Breathe out. In again through your nose. Breathe out. Last time in. And let it go. Today's topic is going to be, what is the worst part about psychedelics or plant medicine? And I love this topic. I love this topic because I feel like the questions were brought up so perfectly for me to answer. So let's begin with the first question, and shout out to the person that asked me this. What is the worst part about plant medicine or psychedelics from a sitter's perspective? From a sitter's perspective, I would say, now this is my opinion, so please feel free to comment below on what you think the worst part is, but my opinion would be, for a sitter, the integrative process. When people come on our retreats, we have a long pre and post integrative process. Our retreats are definitely not for everyone because they're not a retreat that you can just kind of like jump into and then jump out of. We're like, you need to make a commitment to us that you're going to be along for this long journey. And there's a reason why we do it. There's a reason why we have the integrative process so long in the beginning and so long in the end. But the reason why I say that that's the worst part is, for example, let's say everyone in your group has been screened, meaning everybody that's sitting in your ceremony is a good candidate for plant medicine and psychedelics. And your medicine server, as well as other facilitators in the space, have been trained properly, then you should be sitting in a good environment. If your psychedelic or plant medicine experience is difficult, that's one thing. Obviously, if it's an unsafe space and people are untrained, that can be the worst part, the ceremony. But fingers, toes, and titties crossed, all of that goes well, then the worst part is going to be the integrative process. Why? Because when you sit in ceremony, yes, if you have a difficult ceremony or you purge a lot and your head's really in the bucket or you're in and out of the bathroom, it can be a bit overwhelming, of course. However, you get all these downloads, right? So say, let's use ayahuasca for an example. You're sitting in an ayahuasca ceremony. It's anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. It shouldn't be longer than that. And within those 4 to 6 hours, you are in a tight-knit container. So you're receiving these messages, downloads, experiences, whatever you want to call them. And as these things are downloading into you, downloading into your life, downloading into your body in that moment, you're just in that ceremony space. You're just in that tight-knit container. You're held, you're safe, right? You don't have to think about anything else. But then after the experience, you have to go home. You go home to your job, you go home to your kids, you go home to your spouse and your friends and your family and your fucking neighbors and everybody else. And life, right? You go home to social media, you go home to whatever media you intake. And once you get on that bandwagon, that's where the difficulty starts. Because now, say for example, you received a download in ceremony about forgiveness. In ceremony, the next morning you hopefully are in an integration circle and you're like, oh my goodness, I just felt so much forgiveness move throughout my body. I just know that I need to be a more forgiving person. And the medicine is still working through you at that point. So like, you feel fucking good. You feel open-hearted. You feel a lot of forgiveness. Now you gotta go home and somebody does something to fucking piss you off and you gotta forgive them. You don't have to forgive them, but the medicine was trying to teach you to forgive. To forgive. Let's take a deep breath and out. So that's why I would say the difficult part is that. The follow-up question that I got, and again, like I would love to know your response to that first question. And if you are a medicine server or facilitator, I'd love to know your answer to this second question. The follow-up was, okay, if that's the worst part for a sitter, what's the worst part for a facilitator or a medicine server? And I would say from my perspective is it's managing people's expectations. When people come on our retreats, we do our best to manage all of their expectations beforehand. Dylan, who is our integration coach, constantly tells people expectations are premeditated resentments, right? So we want to have agreements rather than expectations, right? That's a whole thing that I usually talk about, is expectations versus agreements. People come to plant medicine and psychedelics and they have an expectation of what the medicine is going to do to them in ceremony and for them in their life. They have an expectation of how the facilitators are going to be. They have an expectation of what the server is going to be like. And so managing people's expectations becomes a big part of being a facilitator, especially for us where we are facilitating a whole experience, right? Like, it's not just one-off ceremony. People are coming with us. They're going to be with us for an entire week. They're going to be in a whole container for over 2 months with us. And we're managing their expectations from the moment that they decide they want to sign up when they're on the discovery call to however long into the future. Because the integrative process never really ends, right? Like, we close out an integration with them, but hopefully they stick around with us and they're integrating for many more months and many more years to come. And so then I got another question, which was, how do you manage those expectations then? The reality is, we're human beings. I cannot manage every single person's expectation, as I know every facilitator or medicine carrier could not manage all of my expectations. I have gone to certain ceremonies and expected one thing to happen, and whether it was good or bad, there was just an outcome that came afterwards. There was just something that I had with these facilitators or medicine carriers that afterwards I was like, okay, it was different from my expectations. It just is what it is. The reality is, as humans, we're always going to have an expectation. And no matter how many times Dylan and I say, hey, drop your expectations, lower your expectations, whatever it is, people are also allowed to have expectations, because sometimes expectations come from a place of, the right word for this would be, they have an idea of the safety and of the level of professionality. I don't even know if that's a word, but how professional we should be in these spaces. And so some of those expectations are actually good. It just starts to become difficult when you have people that, and this has definitely happened on our retreats in the past, where people were like, well, I was already done looking at that, so I don't know why ayahuasca showed that to me 2 nights in a row. And it's like, this is something that's talked about in the plant medicine world, which is the medicine gives you exactly what you need, nothing more, nothing less. We do our best to get you to have your intentions for each medicine. Our retreat consists of 4 different medicines. It's a lot. It's an intense week. It's a life-changing week, but it's an intense week, right? That's why I'm saying our retreat is not for everybody. It is a big life commitment to come on this retreat and work with us. So we do our best to get you to have your intentions clear and knowing which intentions work with what medicine's best. And that's what Dylan does with everybody for the pre-integration, right? But the reality is, sometimes I've had this experience too, where I've sat with a medicine and I'm like, this is my clear cut intention. Here it is, medicine. And the medicine's like, great, love that you came here with us today. Actually, this is what we need to work on though, right? I come in with ABC and they say, you need to be working on XYZ. You'll work on ABC another time, or you'll work on it later. That's not what's important today. And so you also have to have the people in the space be open to the idea that these plant medicines are a technology. They are an ancient technology, they're an indigenous technology, and hopefully your medicine servers as well as facilitators have been working with indigenous wisdom keepers that remind you of this. That the medicines are going to guide you in the way that their intuition, they are so highly intelligent, so closely related to spirit, God, Krishna, Jah, whatever you call what you believe in, whatever it is that you have faith in. And because these plant medicine technologies are so close to that oneness, they're going to take you on the ride that you need to fucking go on. And that's just, it is what it is. Now, again, this is we're talking from the lens that the place that you are sitting at is a safe environment. If we're talking about a not safe environment, then we're talking about something completely different. And that's something that we've talked about a lot in our community. And I've talked a lot about in the past on Instagram Live. So if you'd like to have those conversations, please comment below any questions that you have. I want to take another deep breath here. And if you want to join us here in Peru in the Sacred Valley, In June for the solstice, Inti Raymi, it is a very potent and powerful time here in Peru. In June, there is a lot of Indigenous wisdom celebration happening, and it's really beautiful to witness what happens when you don't strip away Indigenous wisdom and you let people continue to pass down the Indigenous teachings from their parents and their grandparents and their grandparents' parents and so on and so forth. So if you're looking to do that, there's definitely, all of the links are below for you to join us. But I'd also really love to know if you have any follow-up questions to this conversation, and I hope to chat about it with you next time.